read your contracts. That's super, super important. That read every contract, understand what you're signing, leases, everything. And if you're going to be a manager, you're going to have to hire and fire. I would sit down with the people in the U.S. Congress that are trying to make rules for the payment industry and explain to them how it actually works. Yeah, my first business was a restaurant. I had a catering company. I had a food service consulting company for a while. Then I got into this business. And while I've been in this business, we started an app company, a printing company, a graphic design company, which we don't really operate those anymore as a business. We did for a short period of time, but
Nice. So you've done it all almost.
the payments business, ATMs, that's just been that we've been having that's a going concern since 2001. So
Yeah, it's a long time. So
yeah.
have you always sort of had that drive in you to like start something on your own, even since like,
Yeah, my
small
dad
age?
was I grew up, my dad and my uncle owned a factory. So
Nice.
they owned
What
the
kind of
factory,
factory?
clothing. They
All right.
manufactured clothing. So they manufactured. My grandfather on my mom's side manufactured sweaters, and so he had a knitting mill, and they manufactured sweaters. And then my dad and my mom's brother had another factory, and they were doing Banlon, which was this like stretchy material. So
Mm-hmm.
you watch like old video of the Beatles, and they're wearing these shirts with thick stripes going down that look like stretchy material. That's the material. Like you would see it like on a show in the late 50s, early 60s, like on a TV show.
All right.
And
Nice.
so they manufactured that. And then my dad wanted to make jeans. So my dad was making, we moved to Florida, and my dad was making jeans in Puerto Rico that were like they were knockoffs of the jeans that were coming out of Europe, like Britannia, all these different jean companies from. So my dad was making blue jeans from in Puerto Rico, and then he had clothing stores. So I grew up around that. And then my dad had a monogram business where they sewed initials and names on shirts, towels, sheets, uniforms, all kinds of stuff like that. And I got the bug, but I had the cooking bug, so I went to culinary school and I learned all about not just about cooking, but also about the business of being a chef. So a lot of people don't know that a chef has also got to be a businessman because you got to be able to buy smart, run your kitchen, understand food costs, labor costs, menus. I was very lucky when I was first an executive chef. I worked for a company called Metro Hotels, and they were really into computers. So they had a lot of data from the restaurants and the hotels, and that was really interesting to be able to look at the data and understand the data and how that understand like, oh well, you have item on the menu that's not selling. Okay, well, what are we going to do? We got to get rid of that. So you have to kind of understand how to take data, use data, labor cost, and understand how to maintain labor cost. And then you learn about how to manage people.
Yeah, definitely.
So, any kind of business you have, the day comes when you have to hire your first employee, right?
Yeah.
Like with the payment company, obviously restaurants, you have to have employees right away. But this company, I remember when we had to hire our first employee, then the second employee. Now we have like a staff of internally 4 people, and we have about 35, 40 independent 1099 sales reps. So those are, not salary, not, they're independent that work with us.
Yeah, nice. So what have you learned about sort of hiring? Is it hiring fast or hiring slow, or is it just firing fast? Unless it,
Well, you got to definitely be ready to fire fast. So that's one thing definitely you have to have in your brain. Like firing people is not pleasant. Sometimes
yeah,
that has to be done, and you just got to do it. And you might not like doing it, You might not, you know, but you got to be able to do it. And if you're going to be a manager, you're going to have to hire and fire. Hiring, that's where you really need to dive in and really make sure you define the job you're hiring for. What skills does that person need to have? And you really need to put that into the job description. So if you're hiring somebody to edit a podcast, okay, you need editing experience, like we hired a guy works in the office that edits all the videos, so it was really good. He had experience with his own YouTube channel, so we could already see like, oh yeah, this guy knows how to make edit videos. So in making reels, and some of that stuff is kind of new, right? So
Yeah.
no one's gonna tell you like, oh yeah, I'm an expert reel maker. How much of an
Yeah.
expert could you be unless you have a whole bunch to show me, right? Then the same thing. Like if you're going to hire a website designer, show me websites that you made. Show me this. Show me that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
100%.
it's important to make sure you list the skills. Like if you had a Magento website and somebody comes in and they have no experience with Magento, what good are they going to be? You're going to have to go have them take a class and learn Magento. We just build WordPress. So WordPress, pretty universal. Anybody building websites pretty much knows how to, they probably know WordPress.
Yeah.
So you kind of want to stick with that, from that standpoint, stick with WordPress. And, you just have to really define the qualifications and then ask the right questions. And then, depending on what the job is, show and tell, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
If you're hiring a salesperson, what have you sold before? How do you prospect for business? You just got to think up like, that's why sometimes, like people will come to me and they'll be like, oh, I want to get into your business, but I don't want to sell. I just want to hire a bunch of people to sell. Well, how are you going to train somebody to sell something that you don't know anything about?
Yeah, and also I presume that hiring the right person is harder if you don't know how to sell yourself, right? Like, how do you know if it's
Right.
good or not? Yeah.
Yeah, you have to make sure, like, what you want from that person. Okay, what are you have to define everything, the hours
Yeah.
of the job, what's the culture of the company. There are people, sometimes like I used to tell my daughter when my daughter is a meteorologist on TV, right? So I said, oh,
Nice.
8 years ago, got her first job. Now she's the chief meteorologist at the TV station.
Awesome.
Right? So when she went to go to the job interview, she never went to a job interview to be a meteorologist. I go, besides them interviewing you, you need to interview them,
Yeah.
right? And ask the questions that you want to know. Make sure, like, okay, what is approximately what's the schedule going to look like? What is you know, whatever, the culture, anything you need to know about the company or, and things like that. So, that's what it's all. And I taught her because now, she's the chief meteorologist. So she has to hire people underneath her. She had to hire somebody. And she's like,
Yeah.
oh, how do I interview? I said, well, you got to ask the right questions. You want to make sure, does that person have the drive? You knew you wanted to be the chief meteorologist, right? So you did what you needed to do to reach that position. Same thing. My son works at a clothing store. Same thing. Are you hiring any people that do they want to be a manager? Ask them. Is
Yeah.
this just a job while you're in school, or is this a job because you like retail clothing and you want to be a manager one day? So you kind of have to figure out, what are because you have to develop your staff, and you have to make sure, and especially today, I always say AI, right? Is AI going to replace people? Probably not. But people who know how to use AI are going to replace people that don't know how to use AI.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a
So,
big worry right now. At least in my sort of genre that I work in, people are very, very scared about being replaced by AI. I would,
yeah,
yeah,
I think it's more about you need to learn how to use AI.
Yeah.
That you're not dealing with AI, dealing with that, you know?
I tell people like use it as your research assistant or your colleague, so to speak. Like I use ChatGPT as one of my colleagues. Basically, I talk to it like a person. I
Right.
brainstorm with it. I get it to when I have some form of writer's block. I just make it draft something and then I can edit it just to get things started. It's really good at that. I think that's
Yeah,
why I use it.
it was crazy. I was using this tool called Grammarly to help with
Yeah,
grammar, right? But I hate to say this, they ruined their tool. They put AI in it and it made it worse. Didn't make it good anymore. And you couldn't turn the AI off. And I was like, why would they do this? Like I'm not using it like it wouldn't generate anything like Chat GBT, right? But so
yeah,
they ruined it. So, like for blog writing, let's say you want to write a blog or an article, Chat GBT is great. You go in, you say, "Oh, I want this tone. It's for business. The
yeah,
people who are going to read this are um, business owners or whatever they're going to be, students." And then, you get, then usually I'll write at least a paragraph of what it is,
mm,
that I'm going to write about, and then I let it spit it out, right?
yeah,
And once it spits out, I just take it out of there, and then I put it in Word, Microsoft Word I use, and you turn on the editor, and then I try to add like my thoughts into it, and also I learned a lot about writing because I never was like a really good writer, but I took a somebody was told me this. Oh, let me teach you a lesson in writing. So I was like, what? And they were like, when you're doing it, you need to write towards your audience, not
yeah,
I, I. Oh, as a business owner, your business needs this product, right? You need to write sort of like that. Your
yeah.
business, you know, the business owner. You got to direct the words at who's reading it, not what you want to say, like, oh, I offer this service. No, this service is good because it's going to help your business.
Yeah, I do the exact same thing. I try to sort of envision that I'm talking to one single person and then just have that in mind instead of speaking to everyone because then no one just probably be appeal to it. But I think of myself speaking to a single person. Like, yeah, this is my avatar. I'm talking to you. Like literally, this is what you need, and that
Right,
works better for
exactly.
me at least. Yeah,
No, that's exact. But that you want it so that when the person's reading it, that it sounds like it's for them. No
yeah,
matter, right?
agreed.
That's how you want it to be. It's like they're reading something. It's directed for them specifically.
Yeah,
And starting businesses is always interesting. It's an interesting subject. Like, oh, what should I do when I start my business? Do's and don'ts, right?
yeah.
So I have my list of do's and don'ts,
Oh,
right?
nice.
So the
Yeah,
do's are, you know, when you're picking out your business name, some of the worst decisions are not checking if it's a trademark name, right? I don't know. I'm
yeah,
sure you guys have some kind of trademark thing in the
yeah.
EU.
We do. Yeah,
So same as the US. That's why I said it's pretty similar. So you want to make sure like the name you picked is not trademarked. We once had a restaurant and I remember going out to the restaurant and I looked at the name and I go, "Really?" And the guy goes, "What do you mean really?" I go, "What are you doing? Like that's a massive restaurant in Chicago on Miracle Mile. That's the name of it. It's owned by a huge company and I guarantee it's probably trademarked." The guy's like, "Are you kidding me?" And I was like, "No, like
yeah.
for real." And then within a week, they got served with papers. So
Of
you got to
course.
really make sure, like, oh, I picked out a name, and then even if you're not incorporated yet, start snatch up the domain, get the Facebook page, get the Instagram page, get your TikTok, get your LinkedIn, get it all done. While you're figuring out, because when you're incorporating, you can just be like APK, like my name, APK Incorporated, or my dog's name is Rocky, Rocky Incorporated. You don't have to use the doing business as name as your corporation, especially let's say you're selling something maybe somewhat controversial, like it's a liquor store or it's a CBD shop or CBD website. or it's a cigar store. You don't want your name in the name sometimes in the corporate name because that can mess you up with banking.
All
So I
right.
got a guy who has a store and it's called Cuban Crafter Cigars. First thing everybody asks, are they selling Cuban cigars?
Yeah, of
Well,
course.
you can't sell Cuban cigars, but they see the name and they start, some banks are like, I don't know, we can do credit card processing or open a bank account because this guy's got some weird name, right? And
Yeah.
also, banks don't really care what you do for your business. Just, if you're doing some kind of business, like you have you're selling adult novelties, right?
Mm.
You don't say, oh, I sell novelties online. You don't have to tell them specifically, what you do. So, and
True.
and another thing is making sure that so you don't have to match. The corp and the DBA does not have to match. One college professor told me, "Oh no, that's all wrong." And I said, "No." I said that can help prevent you from getting banking, payment processing, loans, all kinds of stuff. Like we had another guy, he had a business called F Bomb. Nobody wanted money. They don't like it. It says F Bomb.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
So the guy to change the name of the corporation, reincorporated under a different name, just uses F bomb as the DBA,
Yeah.
right? And so you have to remember, like you don't want to have a name where it's going to prevent you from doing business or getting loans. Another thing that can mess you up with loans, and people don't understand this, PayPal, Stripe, and Square, they are not banks. Okay, so money, if you leave money in PayPal and you start transacting with it and using it like a bank account, and then you need a loan and you go show that to the loan officer, they're going to tell you that's not a bank account.
Yeah.
So they don't even count that money because they don't know whether you had a P2P account or that's a business account. They don't know what that is. And they have no way to distinguish between it because you can run money from your personal PayPal into your business and vice versa. So PayPal, like we had a guy who was a manufacturing of all things cornhole. Do you know what the game cornhole is?
I don't know. No.
Oh, so it's these big square bags filled with like rice or something, and they toss them through and throw it
Yeah.
into
Yeah, I got
a
it. Yeah.
wooden board with a hole, right?
Yeah, I
So
got
they
you.
were manufacturing that, and they got all this money in PayPal, and he's trying to get a loan, and I'm like, yeah, no loan company's not going to recognize PayPal.
Yeah.
Can't show them that it's a bank account, and you're commingling personal and business funds. So that's another thing. Do not commingle funds.
These are very good. I think these are really, really good lessons. Because I think, or I presume that a lot of founders, or most founders maybe, they see payments as just a way to get paid, basically, right? But
Right.
there's probably like more to it, like you say. So this is some really good stuff. Is there more things that our business owners overlook when it comes to like payment systems?
Well, with payment systems, a lot of, listen, if you're just operating a small, getting started, sometimes PayPal and Stripe and Square can work for you. But once you're doing like 25, $30,000 a month, it's time to get a real merchant account because most people don't understand about those companies they are the actual merchant. You are not the merchant. You have a sub account under their
Mm.
account. And so you're not the actual merchant. So if there's a chargeback or something, or they just say, well, we don't like what you do for business or whatever, they can hold your money. And usually, you have to deal with them versus dealing with like the actual bank where your money's operating through those companies. So people don't understand like the relation. I had a guy the other day tell me, "Oh, I got this $2,000 chargeback, and Stripe's not helping me, and blah 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 blah." I go, "Well, if they're not going to help you, they believe the customer, and they're just going to let it go through.
Yeah.
You're not going to get into the Visa Mastercard system. They're dealing with it themselves. So if that was a merchant account, you would have to write a letter, send the receipts, the documentation. Oh, I shipped the product out. Here's the FedEx or UPS slip. and it was delivered to the person at their address, boom, 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 and you can defend yourself. But if those
Mm.
companies don't want to allow you that, then they don't have to.
Okay.
So that's kind of like the difference between, a merchant account and using a service like that. Also, when you're using any kind of, merchant account, you want to make sure, especially like a SaaS company, let's say you're a SaaS company or you have a subscription model business, right? And you don't want to be like, we had a guy come to us once, they were doing like 2 million a month on Square, and Square cut them off, and then Square wouldn't give them their data.
Hmm.
That's not
Yeah, that
good
sucks. Yeah,
because
that's not good.
you don't have your, I'm like, you don't have your customer data, you don't have an email list, nothing. The guy's like, no. I was like, what? You didn't even maintain an email list from the database? So sometimes it's good to use things like ChargeBee, Recurly, or a third party gateway that the processor doesn't necessarily control, so that if your merchant account did get shut off, you still own all your data, right? Very important. Data is the most important thing today, 2024, 2025. Data. Everybody wants their data, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Your data, especially your customer data. Super, super important. A lot of people also ask me, they go, whoa, I have Stripe and I can't move. Sure, you can move. It's on Stripe's website. You can Google it. Move from Stripe. There's a procedure. They're not going to give you the file. You get a new merchant account. You get it turned on. You get it working. While you're running your subscriptions on Stripe, you go to Stripe and you say, hey, we need to move our data from you to this gateway XYZ. And you fill out a form, and then they do an FTP transfer from their gateway to the new gateway. They don't give it to the merchant because
Okay.
it's all encrypted data, and then the other side has to de-encrypt it and then reformat the file to fit their software. But it can be done. We've done it a bunch of times, like for people with hundreds of contacts, and we've done it for people with like hundreds of thousands of records too. So
Yeah, nice.
it's not that it's I mean it's a process, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, it's a good thing to think about. I think this is really often overlooked by new startup founders. They just use Stripe and then don't really think about it anymore. Me included, probably. So
Yeah,
this is a
you
good
have to
lesson for
think.
me.
Yeah, you have to think about like, okay, how am I going to have control over my payments and keep control that. And the other thing is, this is another subject everybody always laughs, bookkeeping, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
the fun
bookkeeping.
part.
Huh?
The fun part, right?
Yeah, bookkeeping, super boring, super boring. You need to learn about bookkeeping. Like people, a lot of times, like when I was a chef, I learned a lot about budgets. So, you have to budget
Yeah,
and, so you make your budget. So let's say you have a business. Okay, I'm going to lease an office to rent. It's $2,000. I need a phone. How much is my phone going to cost? Write it all down. How much is the electric bill? Okay. How much is the internet, right? So you
yeah,
have all these expenses. So you have expenses those are fixed expenses. Then you have other, so you need to make a list because you need to know like, hey, for my business to survive, I need 4 grand, 5 grand, that's just going to pay the bills. And then, if you're going to have employees, how much do those employees cost? And then you have to
yeah,
remember, I don't know how it works in Europe. So when you pay employees here, you have to pay them you have to pay, they get taxes taken out. And then the employer has to match some of
yeah.
the tax. You have to match
Same
the
here. Yeah,
tax and the social security, for
yeah,
retirement stuff. So you have to really understand, like, okay, and you go into QuickBooks and you connect your account to it, and all the transactions flow in, and then you decide, oh, this is for advertising, that was an auto expense, this is a equipment cost, this is a office expense, boom, boom, and you make sure you keep track of all your expenses, and don't commingle your funds. A lot of people do that. when they have a side hustle, they're commingling funds, right?
Yeah.
And it's important, even if you're doing a side hustle, go to your state. Like in Florida, I think it's 30 to $50. You can get a fictitious name. So you file your fictitious name and you go to the bank and you open up a bank account. You get a debit card or you get a credit card in the name of that company. So that way, and then let's say it's just going to be a one person business. Let's say it starts to be successful. Now you go flip that and you start a single person LLC, they call it, a single
Yeah.
owner LLC. Then you only have to file one tax return. It's an extra piece of paper. I don't know how you guys do that in Europe, so. But in the U.S., that's the way to kind of like and then if you have an S corp, that's different. C corp, that's like public companies.
Mhm.
Then you can have an LLC. There can be a bunch of different members. There's lots of different setups. Because you have in LLC where there's many members. You have managing members who have voting rights, and the other members don't have voting rights.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of figure out like what's the best setup for you and all and how that's gonna work out. You know. But
Yeah.
like I don't know, do you guys have over there in Europe? Do you guys have like Venmo and Cash App, and do you guys have all that?
I mean, we have some more. At least, not in. I don't know about the EU as a whole, but at least in Sweden we have our own sort of. We call it Swish. That's
Okay,
the quick money transfer. But that's more to
person to person, right?
also person to business. So you can also do that. So you can run a business on it. It's really really nice. But it's not a EU product. It's more Sweden ground based. So
Oh,
I
okay.
don't
I
think there's
know
a
every country has their own like
yeah
payments. When
pretty
you
much
deal with like foreign payments, because we deal with like a company that does APMs, alternative payment methods. So let's say we have a client, they're going to do business in Sweden. They have a bunch of customers there. We would send them to the APM company. They get set up, and then that way on their website, someone wants to pay with Swish or whatever that is,
yeah
they're able to do that because they're able to pay in their local currency. So,
nice
it just depends how you're running your business. But here in the US, a lot of people they're running like a side hustle and they get, oh, send me by Zelle, send me by Cash App, send me by this. And they passed a law and now people are getting 1099 from those providers, if they go over a certain amount of money and
mm,
then they have to pay tax on that. So it's always important not to commingle your personal funds and your business funds. I taught a guy a lesson one day. So I sit him down, one of my friends, and I said, "Okay, let me ask you some questions. How much money are you making every month?" So he tells me 10 grand. And I said, "You just have the 10 grand going into your personal bank account, right?" He's in a sales job. He's a 1099. I go, "You are crazy. You're not deducting out any of your expenses.
yeah
You have expenses for your car, your mileage, your cell phone, your website that you have, your email address expense, your internet, gasoline, food if you're entertaining a client, and whatever other business expenses that you have, right?" So he's like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, you're not accounting for any of this expense, but you're paying tax on the top number. If you took all your expenses, right, and you said, "Oh, now I have $12,000 worth of expenses a year," right? Whatever, just you know, then you're deducting that out, right? And you're going to pay less tax. And it's going to pay for itself, the
yeah
corporation, the little extra that the accountant has to do, and blah, 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 blah. So it's really important to understand, like, have, people try, maybe you're trying to do this like side business, right? And you're running it on the side, you're actually costing yourself money. Because once you become successful, then how are you going to deduct all the expenses? So
yeah.
that's
That's a
why
good
you have
lesson.
no commingling funds.
That's a good rule. Um, Another thing that I think might be a good lesson is you mentioned a while back about chargebacks and stuff.
Right.
And I know you talked a lot about chargebacks and fraud also. So is there like one or two small, like one or two things that every small business owner can do to sort of protect themselves against that?
So well, I look at businesses two ways. So let's say you have an in-person business, you need to make sure, like, okay, on your receipts, like the name is correct, you have your contact information, and maybe you sell something where all sales are final, right? Or you want to say exchange, no returns, exchange only, right? Or exchange only, or store no refund, store credit only. So you got to make sure whatever your policies are, that's on your receipt. Okay.
Got
If
it.
you have an online business, you want to make sure that you have all your policies on your website. I have like a document I give merchants, and it talks about, privacy policy, terms and conditions, return policy, refund policy, cancellation policy, that you have your click to cancel button if you have recurring transactions. You want to have shipping information so they know, like, okay, how long does it take the product to ship? Like,
Yeah.
one of the big problems is drop shipping, right? So these people all want to sell stuff from Temu, and then it takes 8 to 10 weeks to get.
Yeah.
People are going to do a chargeback. They're not going to wait that long to get a product. They might if they knew up front, oh, I'm buying this $20 item, I'll get it in 2 months. And
Yeah.
they go, okay, whatever, it's only $20. But if you haven't told them up front, that could be a problem. And the other thing is a lot of people don't think about is the checkout page. So when your people are checking out on your website, right, you want to make sure there's check boxes. I agree to the terms and conditions. Shipping takes whatever, and maybe you have shipping choices: ground shipping, priority shipping. A lot of websites do that because that's kind of an upsell for them. Oh, I
Yeah.
need overnight. Oh, they're willing to pay extra. Charge them, right?
Of
So you
course.
have to make sure like all of those things are clear. Oh, I agree to the terms and conditions, right? And then, obviously, if you do get a charge back, then, you learn to defend it. If you're an e-commerce merchant, you can sign up for chargeback services that do all kinds of stuff. You have RDR, which is um, response resolution, and that
Okay.
gives an automatic refund to the customer. So sometimes that's good if you have a SaaS product. You just put people on RDR. They do an RDR, fine. You just give them back their money and block them out of your system. Other alerts are CDRN and Ethica. Those are from Visa and MasterCard. So if the banks are a member, then the merchant would get an alert. Michael's trying to charge back $200 on Alan's website, and you get it in advance. And I can go look, ooh, this guy, he didn't get his stuff, or oh, it's still on the way. You can call the customer. Hey, your stuff's supposed to get there tomorrow. You put in for a chargeback. Do you want us to continue? Can you call your bank and undo that? Or do you want us to issue a refund and you're going to return the product? Or because sometimes you can't snatch it in midstream,
Yeah.
from shipping provider, but sometimes they can. So you kind of want to, if you're a high volume, you definitely need to have some kind of chargeback software running alongside on your business. Doesn't really help retailers a lot, or restaurants or nightclubs, in-person businesses. Or let's say you take credit cards over the phone. You want to make sure you have a signed authorization form. I tell people, instead of a signed authorization form with just a signature and they're taking a picture of it and sending it back to you, why don't you use something like DocuSign, Adobe Sign, PandaDoc? I'm sure there's a bunch of them over there.
Yeah.
You collect the information from them, or you let them fill it in. You send them a fillable document. They put in all their credit card information, boom, boom, boom. You get it back, and you have an electronic signature, so the person can't say, "Oh, I didn't give the information." That's fraud. So there are ways. What we do with businesses is review what your business flow is, explain to you how to reduce your risk, because that's what everybody wants to do.
Yeah.
Reduce risk. So how do you reduce your risk? So we work with them. Okay, this is how you can reduce your risk. whether you're an in-person business or online business, and then we go through that process with them. And
Yeah,
I've gone to websites and
that's solid stuff.
they don't have policies. They don't even have check boxes. Somebody does a chargeback, the credit card company's just going to give back the money because the person didn't agree to the terms.
Yeah, so you need to have all of those in place. Check all the checkboxes, all the policies on your website.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, that's the good
important.
stuff. So I have a few quick fire rounds just to sort of,
Okay.
if you want to wrap things up a bit, and feel free to sort of expand on them as you like. But if you just want to give a quick answer, please do. This is totally unprepared, so I might put you on the spot for some things, but we'll see.
Good with that.
So first one, what's one payment myth that you'd love to bust?
Bust? What do you mean bust?
Like, is there some myth that's sort of going around that you don't really agree with, or people sort of assume
Payment
something in
method?
payments,
Oh,
or
like Fed now and pay by bank. It's not ready yet. Not ready. It's some of it's ready for prime time, but it's not as quick. It's not as quick as a credit card, and it's not going to ever be. So
got it?
people think like that's the new thing to do to avoid fees. So no, not going to happen.
Yeah, avoiding fees sounds nice, but I got no
And
insights into this, but it's probably not going to work, right?
instant
So
payments is going to cause a lot more fraud than happy people.
true. All right, number two here. As a former chef, what's your go-to dish when you're entertaining someone?
Usually, I try to make. I usually ask, "What do you like and not like?" and then come up with something. But usually, my MO is I go to the store and I buy what's fresh. So if I go to I go to Costco a lot. I don't know
Yeah,
if you guys have that.
we do
So
actually. One Costco.
okay, so like I like fish. So if the person's a fish eater, I'm going to go to the fish. I'm going to see what they have. Oh, what looks better? The tuna, the wild salmon. Oh, they have sea bass. Okay, let's get that. And then I go look at the vegetables. What's fresh? What looks the best? And then put something together. I learned like you gotta be like you gotta be like a magician. I call it the mystery box of being able to cook with what's you want to cook. I try to like when I was cooking today, they would call it farm to table
All
because
right.
that's how I cooked. Like I really stuck with like, oh, what are the fresh seasonal things, and I wasn't hung up on recipes.
Yeah, I got it. Perfect.
Everybody likes like my kids want. Oh, make brisket, make pot roast. It's Hanukkah. So I got to make potato latkes. So that
Perfect.
those they get requests for certain things.
Of course you do. Everyone has requests.
Yeah.
Um, a favorite tech gadget that you can't live without?
Tech gadget. Oh, my phone. That's big time. Love my
Yeah.
phone. I don't know if I have any other like techie gadgets. I'm not a big like gadget person. But yeah, the phone is amazing to think about that you're walking around with this thing. It's like what, we're living Star Trek right now, right?
Yeah, I would be useless without my phone.
Yeah, it's crazy like what you can do with your phone. Like I don't wear a watch. People are, why don't you have a watch? I said, I don't really like watches.
Yeah.
Oh, one of my favorite like weird devices I have one of those robot vacuums. Love that thing. I hate
Yeah.
vacuuming. A robot vacuum, those things are awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Those are really good.
Everybody get a robot vacuum. And I do like the camera, like ring bell camera things. I like
Yeah.
that. I don't know. Cameras have gone a little bit too far because it's like, I was in somebody's office recently. I mean, they had cameras inside, outside. Like they're watching the employees and stuff like that. I mean, so it can be good if you have, depends on the kind of business you're in. Cameras are super, super important. I like my camera on my front door because I can see like the Amazon guys dropping stuff off, and sometimes they don't walk through the gate. They just throw it there, and then it's pouring rain, and whatever's in there
Yeah.
sometimes can be ruined. And at least you have proof.
Yeah. It's always good to have the evidence on your side. Yep.
But
I got
yeah,
the proof here. Here's the clip of it.
no, here I'll tell you. This is a good tool. Okay, so I used to have a problem like keeping a schedule. So once I started using like my Outlook calendar and then I linked in appointment software in there, that's how I kind of control my whole day. So
That's
that's what controls the day, the week. So I know what I have to do. Everything's on there. If people want to talk to me, go to my appointment link. Have a link tree which is like an electronic business card. I have the link on my website. So it's very important to stay organized. That's a great tool is using your calendar and have an appointment link so people can book appointments with you from a business.
perfect. Right, quick fire number 4. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever received about running a business?
Best piece of advice. Uh, hmm.
Don't do stupid shit.
Huh?
Don't do stupid shit. Just
No.
stick to that and you're fine.
So here's some advice from one of my attorneys. Don't ever, if there's something that you want to say to somebody, right? You could say it to them. Don't put everything, if there's something, don't just send like somebody an email, right? Don't put it in writing unless you
Yeah.
really for it to be in writing. Because once it's in writing, that's it. It's in writing. You sent the email now, whatever. You told somebody to piss off, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. It's not going to work. So you can't do that. So you gotta be careful. And the other thing I would tell you is read your contracts. That's super, super important. My attorney told me that read every contract, understand what you're signing, leases, everything. Like I know a guy who signed a lease for a restaurant. He didn't read the lease. He was responsible for the air conditioning. The air conditioning broke and was like $20,000 that he wasn't planning on spending. So you need to make sure
Yeah.
what's in your lease, any agreements. And my attorney used to tell me every agreement you sign, right, is as good as the other person who signed it. So,
Mm.
and also avoid lawyers. So when you have a business disagreement, it's really important to avoid attorneys, try to work it out, call the person up, whatever, come to some kind of resolution and avoid attorneys. Those are all good things. Read all your contracts, avoid attorneys.
They're good stuff. I haven't done it by myself, but I would, suppose that you have a contract to review and it's really long. It might be quite complicated. Maybe it's written in a sort of, a bit of language, or at least, a bit too formal so you don't really understand everything. I think you can just upload it to ChatGPT and be like, does this make sense? Is there anything here I should look out for? Is this just standard stuff, or, just have ChatGPT have some input on it?
Yeah, but that's a good, useful thing. I saw some guys making a legal chat GBT thing, but
Yeah,
I tested it out for them. It didn't work that well. It's good for
yeah,
like NDAs and some other stuff, but things that could be in a contract, like, oh, you must sign up 4 new clients every month in order to keep your commission. You might not want to agree to that.
yeah, exactly. Or at least you might want to know about
You
it.
we're not going to pay you if your commission is below
Yeah,
500 a month. Do you want to agree to that? So you have to, while ChatGPT might not pick up on that, right?
yeah,
Might not
exactly.
pick up on requirements, right? Unless you specifically say, are there any minimum requirements in here? So you just want to make sure, like, people will word things like, oh, the landlord will say, oh, we're not responsible for anything that's not attached to the building.
Mm.
Listen, we have a new landlord. I said to the guy, I'm like, the door is attached to the building, so you're responsible for the door.
Yeah, yeah, agreed.
So don't tell me you're not responsible for the door. What are you going to do? So I'm like, I'm like, yes, the door is attached to the building, right?
Yeah.
Come on, like a pipe is attached to
Hopefully it
the
is.
building. Huh?
Hopefully it is.
Well, I'm just saying, you got to make
Yeah,
sure, you know, are you responsible for the air conditioner or not?
yeah,
Are you responsible for the plumbing? You're buying a restaurant. Where's the grease trap? Has it been cleaned
yeah.
out since the last tenant left? Things like that. That could cost you $50,000. I saw that happen to somebody before.
That's
They,
expensive. Yeah, that's an
yeah,
expensive lesson to learn.
yeah. The grease trap wasn't compliant.
Mm.
They didn't know,
Ouch.
and then you got to do your due diligence,
All right, we got the final quickfire round question here. Again, I'm going to put you on the spot here a bit. So, if you could fix one thing in the payments industry overnight, what would it be?
Oh, I would sit down with the people in the U.S. Congress that are trying to make rules for the payment industry and explain to them how it actually works, because they attack Visa, MasterCard constantly, and it's not really 100% their fault. But they could change a couple of things. One, give lower what they call dues and assessments to merchants doing under 50 grand a month. Lower the dues and assessments because they've gone way too high. I got in the business, they were like 8 basis points. Now they're like 14 basis points. It's too high. People doing under 50 grand need to pay less than bigger businesses, okay, to have some parity. Number two, that is Durbin Amendment. That thing is horrible. It's outdated. It's from 2010, and they need to bring back what's called small ticket interchange. Have small ticket used to go up to like 10 or 15 bucks. Now it needs to be like up to like maybe 25 or $30 and have a lower fee for that. That'll help small businesses. And the last thing is, a lot of businesses, I don't know if you guys have this over there, but here businesses try to pass the fee to the customer and just make that legal so everybody can do it. And then they need to also understand this one thing that they don't understand. When you walk into a business, whether you bought this bag of candy, whether you bought this Hanukkah gnome, right? Or you bought this cup, right?
Yeah.
We don't know what you bought. We see the total amount. That's it. We do not see what the item is that you bought. So we don't know whether you bought a sword, a gun, a bullet, a gnome, Hanukkah gnome,
Yeah.
right? We have no idea. We don't know if you went in the restaurant, you got a steak, a fish, or a burger. We don't know. So they need to understand that we don't know what you bought. We don't know if you paid sales tax. We don't know if you left a tip. So they need to understand like the inner workings of all of that, And the other thing is I think like these that's one thing. The other thing is these alternative payment methods. There's a huge problem with fraud with those, and there's a huge problem with fraud all over the world. I'm sure that the fraud over there, you get fake text messages, fake emails, click here, click there,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden somebody's stealing all the money out of your bank account or running up your credit card, and ruining your life, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a guy on YouTube, Mark something, with an R. He's got blue hair, and he's like got this hacking business, and he hacks all these people, and he tries to stop hackers from ripping people off. I mean, if that guy can invade all these phone rooms in India and
Yeah.
Pakistan or wherever they are, then the governments around the world should be able to shut all these people down already and stop, and get rid, instead of talking about like, oh, fraud, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Just, we know where it's all coming from, right? Russia,
Pretty much, yeah.
Ukraine, India, Pakistan, wherever it's coming from, China. These guys on YouTube, there's 2 or 3 guys, they chase it all down, right? So if they can chase it down, the NSA and the whoever, blah, 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 can go chase all these people down and just shut this all down. And we wouldn't have to deal with all this stuff because there's billions of dollars lost to fraud, and people's lives are ruined. So
Yeah, like technically, that's absolutely possible. I would presume it's like politics and laws and stuff, but yeah, like technically, yeah, absolutely, that's doable. I wish they would do that. That would be great.
I mean, if I was the president of the United States, that I would tell them, I'd sit them all down. I go, this is how the payment system works. Boom. You want to fix it? Here's 3 things you can do right away. Will have an impact on small business, right? On small businesses, impact on them. And then the other thing is, one last thing. So
Yep.
they're always complaining about Visa and MasterCard. And they go, oh, well, Walmart gets special rates. But they never attack Stripe, Square, PayPal, Shopify, QuickBooks, all these payment aggregator companies, right? They also get lower rates from Visa and MasterCard, and they charge their customers high rates. But they don't complain about those companies. They probably own stock in all of them. But but I'm just saying, like, there's no, they're just like not zeroed in on like what's going on. Like the Senator Durbin guy made this Durbin amendment where you have this debit cards are 0.05 and 22 cents. How come he never asked Stripe, Square, and PayPal why they don't pass that fee to their customers? Instead, they charge them like 2.69 or 3.5%. I don't think they asked the right questions.
Yeah, yeah, good stuff.
Be up there. I'll ask the right questions.
We should have you up there.
I should be up there. I've written to them enough times to ask them, like, hey, I'll consult with you.
Nice. Yeah. I hope to take you up on it. That would be great.
I wish they would. Senator Durbin, I'm available. Josh Hall,
Perfect.
who's ever gonna try to put Visa and MasterCard over the coals, invite me. Please, I'll help you guys.
Awesome. We'll clip that and make it viral. And then
Okay.
we'll see. Yeah, perfect. So, Alan, I mean, you've dropped a lot of really great lessons here. That really, really good takeaways. I assume that you have a lot of more stocked up as well. So, if where can people go to find you? I know you have your own podcast also and your YouTube channel,
You
right?
can look up the podcast B2B Vault, the Biz to Biz podcast. We're probably going to rebrand it for 2025, but still be B2B Vault. It's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. You can find me on LinkedIn, Alan Kopelman. I'm on LinkedIn. I post a lot of blogs there. So there's a lot of information. You can go to the website, nationwidepaymentsystems.com, and learn about all kinds of different business products, all types of technology products for businesses that we offer, as well as payments. So it's not all about payments, it's also about technology. So we're a very technology focused company and we offer all types of different technology. We try to figure out like, oh, what kind of technology do you need? And then, put payments together with that.
That's perfect. And I'll have all of that in the show notes as well. So it's going to be clickable if you want to.
Oh, great.
All right. I think that's the pod, Alan. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Michael, for having me as a guest. And I hope you stay warm. It's in the 70s here in Florida right now.
I got snow and ice, so we'll see how we hold up.